So you want to know about secure access and reporting to Data Protector and all its solutions. So first of all, let me explain that all control and data communication is encrypted. So wherever we move data back and forth, either through login or control commands like starting a backup and getting monitoring information, for instance, all of those kind of communication channels are encrypted. The same is true for data flow. Whenever we have a data flow going on in terms of backup and restore, all the data in flight will be encrypted and sent from the source to target. That's the default setting. It can be turned off, and it's going to be asked at the installation time of Data Protector or later on when you upgrade. And it's your choice on how you want to deal with that. So first of all, login works like from a drop-down menu where you can either select local users or LDAP users, and how those are configured I will show you in a minute. Anyway, so the first approach is to maybe select from one or the other login that you're using depending on your location or responsibility at that very moment. So you can pick from your existing logins here, and you give it your password and sign in. And you would end up on the dashboard view that you've seen in the other demonstrations as well. So one of the important items here is connecting to LDAP. And then, like I said, we have many ways of dealing with users and groups. One of it is maybe LDAP or secure LDAP. And in this particular example, I'm connected to my LDAP system locally. Just note at this very moment, it is not mandatory to connect to LDAP, so you can actually run Data Protector completely standalone, disconnected from any other service provider, and make that a completely sealed or locked environment if you want. Anyway, if you choose to use LDAP, then information is kind of connected here. And on the right-hand side, you can always sync with your LDAP configuration. That's usually done when a new user has been created and you want to make use of that new user immediately, then you may want to manually sync. Otherwise, a sync is happening every day. So that's about LDAP. There's also configuration items on the left-hand side, which lets you manage certificates and other settings, so they support the whole configuration. So once you're decided with LDAP or local users, you can move to administration, and in administration, you find our RBAC system or role-based access management system. So you have those three groups or the three items showing up on the left-hand side. You have certain roles being either pre-configured or set up by yourself. The roles will actually define which of those systems or which of those members can actually have access to certain systems. Basically, the role has a distinct name, and in that role, you will assign access to certain instances. Instances are, of course, the backup clients or virtual machines, physical machines, whatever it is, cloud workloads, and so on. They will just show up here. And on the right-hand side, you have an overview of the systems which have been selected from the total number of systems available, because that can be a large number. And obviously, if you want to make your life easier, you may want to go for searching here, because some of our customers have like 10,000s of clients, and you want to nail that down or narrow that down to the absolute minimum that you want to deal with. So this is kind of one of the steps you can do. And if you have chosen your servers, the next step would be to look at individual privileges, where instance privileges can be defined like backup, restore, or view. And if you go for administration, you would see some additional information. And also, if your role also needs access to the cell or to the cell management system, then you can also define some of those cell-based rules that are printed on the screen over here. So next up would be user management, where I just said you can have a mixture of local and LDAP users, like you see here. So there's a couple of users in here. Some of them are local. And obviously for local users, you can set them up, you can change them, you can also change passwords and so on. You can delete. And for LDAP users, what we do is we only sync with the LDAP, but we're not creating or changing any user name or password and so on. You can delete a user from this configuration, but this certainly doesn't delete the user from LDAP. So this is just like a local interpretation of that, which is synced with LDAP. And at the end of the day, you're joining those two areas together in a group. The group is made of users belonging to a group and roles attached to those groups in that kind of sense. So like you see here, you have a certain name under which this particular group is showing up. And in here, you have users being selected, and you will see one or many roles being available for selection. So that's basically role-based access management and working with either LDAP users or local users. The other area pretty important here is reports, and that is selected or chosen by the reports tab in that main dashboard. So first of all, you will see your own favorite that you have defined. So this is basically the configuration that shows up when you log in. So some of that might be very useful for yourself. So that is your primary view on things you want to see. On the left-hand side, you can drill into individual items. And so what is displayed here is basically predefined reports that you can get from your systems. And they can drill down into individual client names, certain configuration times, backups and restores done. You can also see utilization of whatever media you have, or the kind of the bandwidth that you have available in your systems, and obviously information like session status reports on your backup activity. All those reports can be exported in various formats, and they can be sent off by email to whatever and they can be sent off to administrators, operators, or whatever other people. Now, just giving you a couple of examples here, maybe one of the most important one is RPO and RTO, because that's the usual SLAs we define in a backup environment. Recovery point objective, obviously being the one that tells you to which point in time you can restore. And that's actually measured against something that you set up as a default in this configuration. Like if your recovery point is to 10 minutes from the current state of play, and that is actually not possible the way you're backing up today, then you will see warning and error messages here. So I can give you a short example. If you're looking for a certain system, that in my case is our vCenter server, it will provide me information about the virtual machines that are backed up. And on the right-hand side, what you see is like that status where the SLA that has been predefined is met or actually breached. Now, from here, you have some options available. You can make sure that you back up more often to get that point in time covered, or you may want to go for a different backup device or faster devices and so on if it is more kind of on the timing perspective. So once you've done those changes, you run those backups again, or you wait for the next backups to kick in. and you can check on the status to see if your kind of breach status is actually going away. So you have clear indication if all your backups are within your specifications and SLAs. There's also some advanced reporting on the left-hand side, like also of capacity. So you want to make sure that your backup devices are not overwhelmed with the capacity coming in. And it will tell you where your main data is coming in. Most of the time that's on weekends, but it could be completely different depending on your own needs. There's also chargeback information that you can have to print or to provide kind of chargeback to individual customers, tenants, and so on. And you may also want to see information like the most unreliable backups that you have. So that is super important information for administrators and operators, because you want to work on those unreliable backups very first in the morning and get them covered and get them cleared. There's a configuration area where you can do those settings, like I said. So what we do here is reporting server is a dedicated, usually a virtual machine or a cloud workload, which is attached to your data protector cell manager, and it syncs on a regular basis. So when you're doing reports, you're not kind of pulling down performance from your main cell manager. And reporting server is actually made in a way that it can report on multiple cell managers at the same time. Anyway, you see a couple of information and configuration items down here that you can use for your own purposes. Okay, so much for reporting. The next item that I wanted to show is monitoring. So first of all, there is a monitoring icon up here, which gives you a very quick information about what's currently going on. So there are no sessions running at this time, but if you have a lot of items going on, they will pile up here, and you have clear overview of what's currently going on and what the situation is. Now, if you want to dig into some of those monitoring sections a little bit deeper, then you go for the monitor itself. So let me just quickly fire off a backup for you to see what's going on. So we have shown you Oracle Server backup already. So let's take one of the virtual environment backups, for instance. Here's a backup that we can do, selecting information by data stores. So let me kick that off. So this will obviously go into the monitor area, and you see that individual backup job going on. So in the monitoring, you will have a lot of normal information. You also see warnings, errors, whatever, abort information here. So whatever it is, it will show up here. And obviously in the internal database, you can always follow on those monitoring information. Like if you want to see something that was from 2 years ago, then you can see that in the internal database and make use of that for comparison reasons or whatever. So that is kind of the usual use case. So these are the most important items that I wanted to show you regarding secure access, reporting, and monitoring, and checking if you have any more questions.